All right, looks like everyone's ready. I'd like to call the City of Mount Vernon City Council meeting for June 10, 2020 to order. The time is now 6 o'clock. We'll start with our roll call of council members, and I'll go a little slow while you unmute. So Council Member Aaron Moberg.
Here.
Council Member Gary Molinar.
Here.
Council Member Melissa Beaton.
Here.
Council Member Mark Hulst.
Here.
Council Member Mary Hudson.
Here.
Council Member Iris Carillas.
Here.
Council Member Richard Rocksmith.
Here.
Great, thank you. Moving on to our consent agenda, we have 3 items tonight. Item A, B, and C. It is the approval of the May 27 council meeting minutes, the approval of the June 5 payroll checks, and the approval of the June 10 claims.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion by Aaron and a second by Mary. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Under reports tonight, we have item A, which is a review of emails from the public. And published in our agenda is an email address, council@mountvernon.gov. And I have received emails and I will read them now. There's, I think, 5 of them. So the first message states from Jason Griffith. It says, "Good evening, Mount Vernon City Council. In these difficult times, I wanted to reach out with a note of appreciation for all the Mount Vernon police officers do for the city of Mount Vernon. I know they have an extremely difficult job, and I have been impressed with how they handle themselves without exception. This has been true for a long time. I've lived in town for the past 20 years and unfortunately deal with a lot of trespass and vandalism issues related to a property downtown. In the interactions I've witnessed, they've always been professional, kind, and calm when faced with difficult situations. I can't say the same for other cities I've lived in, and I think that could be getting lost in all this noise. Police reform isn't a one-size-fits-all strategy, and it will vary by community. In some areas, like Mount Vernon, it may mean just an acknowledgement that officers are doing an overall good job, and to encourage them keep striving for excellence. To be honest, I watch calls to defund, disband police forces with alarm, and I wanted to let the council know that I do not support such an approach for our town." And cheers, Jason Griffith. The next comment is from Kathleen Roche. Oh, I'm going to butcher this name. I apologize. Zujiko, Z-U-J-K-O. I'm sorry. Kathleen writes, "Hello, I live in Mount Vernon and have a couple of questions for the council. Number 1, what is the current status of plans for low-income housing and housing for the homeless? I keep seeing so many unhoused folks around town when we have empty buildings that could possibly be used as temporary shelters. Winter is coming and the need is great. Can we work in conjunction with the county to address this problem? And number 2, are there any plans to be proactive regarding our police department and the Black Lives Matter movement? Are our officers trained to de-escalate potentially violent situations?" And so I did reply, and I'm sure council may have replied as well. And just in synopsis, I wanted to let the community know the answers to those questions is that the city has worked with Skagit County Public Health for many years around homelessness, specifically during the pandemic. The county committed federal funds for hotel rooms for homeless individuals, and recently the city committed an additional $30,000 for this use. The county also recommitted an additional, I believe it's $200,000, but I'm wondering if I got that number wrong. It may be more. It is stopgap. We've also working on a permanent supported housing project for the last 3 years, collaborative together, and hope to break ground early next year or late this year, probably early next year. Commissioner Janicki has convened the cities and county on solutions for shelter in the meantime. Regarding low-income housing, Skagit County Housing Authority is working on a project, and the city has passed incentives for affordable units. Regarding the question about police, I referred her to our website, which has lots of detailed information to help answer her question, and I received an email back that she appreciated the information. The next one is from Andra Heath. The email states, "I would like to know what my community is taking I would like to know that my community is taking proactive steps to protect people of color against brutality. What are you doing to be part of the solution rather than adding to the problem? So again, I had replied to Andra with detailed information and links to our police information, same as with Kathleen's email. The next email was from Jim Bauman. It's an email that had an attached letter, so I'm going to read the letter. Greetings, Mayor Boudreau and all City Council members. It is with great pride that as a citizen of Mount Vernon, I provide you with this unconditional letter of support for all of the members of our city's law enforcement community. I was fortunate to have participated in and completed the Mount Vernon Police Department Citizens Academy, Class 23, February 9 to April 27 of 2017. That class provided an extensive and transparent look into police department operations, policies, equipment, personnel, and community networking. Officers at every level of the department provided classes, and that weekly face-to-face interaction also provided an opportunity to get to know our officers and volunteers at both a professional and personal level. I was tremendously impressed with the length of tenure by every officer involved with this program. Additionally, many of the officers are longtime Mount Vernon or Burlington residents. Those who weren't seemed to quickly become part of the family. In addition to protecting our health, safety, and welfare, these officers are sons and daughters of local families, parents of children who go to our school, and they are our friends and our neighbors. Clearly, our local and national communities are always a work in progress. Times change, and so does our culture. However, there are some necessary ingredients to a thriving, healthy, safe, and free community. One of these ingredients is an effective, empathetic, understanding, and community-based policing component. Unfortunately and historically, a small portion of our population, for a variety of issues, pose a risk to that sense of community that is vast majority of our population expects and treasures. The dedicated officers and volunteers of our police department provide 24/7 and heartfelt commitment to ensure a peaceful community. Our department is a model for the rest of the nation. Unfortunately, it takes a COVID-19 pandemic to awaken our gratitude for all of our healthcare providers for putting their lives in the line for our safety. I thank them. Unfortunately, it takes a truly tragic event in Minneapolis involving police officers to awaken our gratitude for all of our local police officers for putting their lives on the line for our safety, and I thank them. I would encourage our city leaders to do the same. Thank you, N. James Bauman. And then the last email that I have is was sent last week, and I didn't get it. So it was hello council members from Mr. Danny Richards. Hello council members, I wanted to reach out to you real quickly to fill you in on some of the new protocols TNT Fireworks will be utilizing this 4th of July season amid this ongoing pandemic. Attached, you will find our plans for curbside pickup in phase 1 of Washington's reopening plan, along with social distancing measures. We will also be providing each of our retail locations with disposable masks, disposable gloves, sanitizer, and extra signage to show CDC guidelines, distancing reminders, and curbside pickup instructions. We look forward to selling fireworks in Mount Vernon this year while taking every precaution needed and also following the guidance that we've received from our governor's office. If you have any questions, please let me know, and know that we and our local nonprofits from right there in Mount Vernon appreciate your support of their fundraisers and work that you do for the community. Thank you, Danny Richards. Those are the emails that I received. I don't know if any other council member had received something in addition. And there will be council member comments, so maybe you would want to share at that point as well. So, all right, moving on then. Item B is our council member comments. Is there any council member that would like to make a comment tonight?
I do. Oh, go ahead, Mary.
Go
Okay,
ahead, Mary.
thank you. I'll just make it really short. I think that all of us have watched in horror the events that have transpired with different law enforcement agencies over the last couple weeks. But I want to say that I personally support our men and women on the Mount Vernon Police Force 100%. I've witnessed their transparency, their engagement, and their compassion. I'm proud that we are a community policing area. We will be for a very, very long time. And I just wanted them to know that I really support them.
All right, thank you, Mary. Go ahead, Melissa.
Yeah, I just wanted to take a moment to thank Jill and Doug and all of the department heads for the City of Mount Vernon for your significant consideration and time that has gone into the proposals and timelines previously presented to Council. These are unprecedented circumstances and very difficult decisions to make. We've had necessary and meaningful conversations, and I appreciate it. The city has reduced its budget by 10.3%, and most of that is staff. These are coworkers, friends, and community members. I don't want to lose sight of that. That's 10 full-time positions and 21 part-time positions. As we move forward, I will continue to work through this question. What is the level of service the community is willing to pay for and willing to eliminate? I just want to say thanks, and I appreciate the feedback that I have received from the community. I hear you and I share your concerns. Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa. All right, you didn't want to miss any other council member? Okay, moving on for mayor's reports. I'm going to share my screen. Everyone's favorite. Let me go up to this slide. Okay. So under mayor's report, I wanted to make sure that our community knew where to find information about our police department. And so encourage anyone with questions to go to mountvernon.gov. And there you'll find not only in our front page under news and announcements, a direct click that you can click onto our page, or you can certainly just look under departments and click onto the police department page. There you'll find information that's been there for a long time, annual reports, things about our administration, how we hire, and then there's also right at the very top there, the June 6, 2020 statement with information on use of force. And on the right side of the screen here, it's just a screenshot of what that document looks like. It's several pages, and we really endeavored to answer questions that have been posed throughout the last couple of weeks in an effort to be as transparent as we possibly can. So I just wanted to read a statement that went out on the mayor's e-newsletter and reiterate that here in this public setting. In recent national and global headlines, the recent national and global headlines have rightfully raised questions locally about how police officers approach their work. An officer that would betray the trust of the public by intentionally causing harm, discriminating, or in any way abusing the authority with which they have been entrusted is altogether deplorable and horrifying. Acts of racism by any city employee will not be tolerated for any reason. The information, if you go to our website, that you will see will reflect a commitment to community policing by proactively engaging all of the cultures within our population and by nurturing a culture of transparency and accountability. You will find information about extensive training, a stringent hiring process, a robust volunteer program, and policy that is regularly reviewed and updated. It is because of these foundational practices that our department is one that we can all be proud to have serving our city. Written into the Mount Vernon Police Code of Ethics are the following words. The officer's fundamental duty is to serve the community, to safeguard lives and property, to protect the innocent against deception, the weak against oppression or intimidation, and the peaceful against violence or disorder, and to respect the constitutional rights of all to liberty, equality, and justice. These are more than simply words for our police staff. These are ideas and are the impetus behind the uniquely respectful culture that makes our department stand out amongst the other departments locally and nationally. As city leaders, Chief Kamek and I take full responsibility for our police staff and their actions and vow for continued transparency, community involvement, and open communication. And then the last thing I wanted to make sure that was put out information was that the city of Mount Vernon is now accepting micro enterprise grant applications. This was an action of City Council to dedicate this funding to go directly to small businesses within the city of Mount Vernon. The deadline for application is June 19. People can go to skagit.org and that's the Economic Development Alliance of Skagit County website, which is conducting the process for us. They're providing grants up to $10,000, and there's some very specific requirements, and that's put to us by the federal government. However, there is $100,000 in grants available. Applications are available in both English and Spanish, and so if you know of a business owner that could take advantage of this help, we ask that you spread the word, and that's skagit.org. Okay, moving on. Under new business tonight, item A is a CDBG subrecipient agreement with Community Action of Skagit County, and Peter Donovan has this agenda item. Peter.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, at your May 13th meetings, you approved the city's 2020 CDBG action plan. This action plan is a list of how the city is going to allocate over $600,000 in federal funding to Mount Vernon residents and businesses, agencies who need support right now. One of the items you approved was $110,000 for COVID relief funding to Mount Vernon tenants through the various programs in Skagit County. Before you tonight is a sub-recipient agreement with Community Action. The agreement simply clarifies the scope of work that Community Action will be performing in assisting these households in Mount Vernon who have been impacted by the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. And it sets the amount of CDBG funding, which is $110,000, that will pass through the city of Mount Vernon from the Department of Housing and Urban Development to Community Action, and then finally to our Mount Vernon residents. So it's a great program, and staff is happy to recommend that council authorize the mayor to enter into this subrecipient agreement with Community Action of Skagit County.
Okay, any questions for Peter on this particular item?
I had one question. If we go to section 4 and we look under consideration, it says the city shall contribute $50,000, and then it says 110,000. I think we need to make a correction there.
I always like that, and another council member caught that one as well. That has been updated in the draft agreement. Thank you, Council Member Holst.
Thank you.
All right.
Could I, this is Richard.
Sure.
Just note that while I haven't actually seen the data myself, I've been told that there's been an over 500% increase in households that are searching for support for rental assistance. So this is a very timely thing, and I really appreciate everybody supporting these programs.
Okay. Any other questions from council?
I would move the adoption.
To approve that. Oh, go ahead, Mark. I move to recommend the council authorize the mayor to enter into this agreement with Community Action.
Second.
All right. Thank you. Motion by Gary and a second by Mark. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right. Item B tonight is the approval of an agreement with Washington State Department of Commerce for coronavirus relief funds, and our finance director, Doug Bolesky, is here.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, council members. Staff recommends that council authorize the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Washington State Department of Commerce for federal coronavirus relief funds. Through the Coronavirus Relief Funds, or CRF, the CARES Act provides for payments to state, local, and tribal governments navigating the impact of the COVID-19 outbreak. The Treasury will make these payments from the fund through grants from the Washington State Department of Commerce to local governments in Washington State. The CARES Act requires that the payments from the fund only be used to cover expenses that, 1, are necessary expenditures incurred due to the public health emergency, 2, were not accounted for in the budget most recently approved as of March 27th, 2020, or 3, were incurred during the period that begins on March 1st, 2020 and ends on December 30th, 2020. The City of Mount Vernon has been awarded funds through the CRF in the amount of $1,072,200, which was allocated by the 2019 population for each jurisdiction. Funds may not be used to fill shortfalls in government revenue to cover expenditures that would not otherwise qualify under the statute. Although a broad range of uses is allowed, revenue replacement is not a permissible use for fund payments. The use of these funds are very broad and flexible and can be used for both operating and capital expenditures. The intent of these funds is to help jurisdictions cover the immediate impact of the COVID-19 emergency, both direct costs to the jurisdiction and costs to the communities. This item is to execute the contract with the Department of Commerce. It will take about 2 to 4 weeks for them to execute the contract fully, and then the funds will be accessible. And at that point, we'll have to do a budget amendment to get this into our budget. So with that, staff recommends that council authorize the mayor to enter into this agreement with the Washington State Department of Commerce for federal coronavirus relief funds.
Okay, any questions about this particular item tonight?
I just had one quick question. Doug, is this a situation where we submit invoices and then they reimburse us, or is this money flowing straight into the city?
No, it's a reimbursement base. They have a grant database that we have to put in for all the reimbursements for.
All right, that's how I understood it earlier, so thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any other questions?
I'd like to make a move that the staff that we recommend us to let the mayor enter into this agreement with the Washington State Department of Commerce for federal coronavirus relief funds.
Second.
All right, motion by Mary. We'll give a second to Iris. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Hopefully that'll be sooner than later for that. All right. Item C tonight is an authorization for Senate House Bill 1406, which is a local state shared tax for affordable and supportive housing. Something we've discussed for a little bit, and I'm going to have Doug go ahead and introduce this item and then ask a few of the council members if they have any comments from a small group committee. Doug?
All right, thank you. Staff is requesting that council approve an ordinance that would authorize the collection of tax for Substitute House Bill 1406, which is the local state shared tax for affordable and supportive housing. SHB 1406 allows local jurisdictions to impose a local state shared sales and use tax to fund affordable or supportive housing. The bill allows a county or city to enter into an interlocal agreement with other local governments or public housing authorities to pool the tax receipts received and pledging those taxes to bonds. This would allow the city to enter into an agreement with the county or housing authority for project-related use of the revenue. The consumer does not pay this tax, and the effective sales tax rate remains the same. Instead, this tax is credited against a 6.5% state sales tax. The potential annual city revenue is estimated at being about $62,865. This will be expires at 20 years from the date that it is imposed, and it is limited to the taxable retail sales in fiscal year 2019 multiplied by the rate, which is 0.0073%. To impose this tax, the city must adopt both of the following items: a resolution of intent to adopt legislation by January 28th, 2020, and 2, a legislation to authorize the state by July 28th, 2020. City Council did adopt Resolution 972 on January 22nd, 2020, which was a resolution of intent to adopt this legislation. This action tonight is to approve legislation to authorize the tax by July 28th, 2020. That's right.
Okay.
So staff is just requesting that council approve an ordinance that would authorize the collection of tax for this SHB 1406, the local state share tax and affordable supportive housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Doug. And just a reminder, because we got a little confused. If we adopt this tonight, we'll start seeing collections in August?
On August 1st, that's correct.
Just making sure. All right, there was a small group of council members that's been working on this, and so I didn't know if any of them would have anything they'd like to add. It would be Richard Rocksmith, Melissa Beaton, and Gary Molinar sat in on some of those discussions. So anything to add?
I'm glad that we were able to do this. Even though it's not a ton of money, obviously we'd like to probably have more than this, but I guess just to know that the public knows that it isn't a tax, that it is getting a credit towards that tax, and that we're being able to use it in a different way than we would have if it was just going out to the state. So yeah, I'm very happy with this.
Thanks, Gary. Richard, you were unmuted, so I was wondering if you were.
Yeah, thanks. I'll just note that I think we're really excited about this program, which is a unique program the state legislature created last year to help us with the housing stock shortfall. I know whether you're making $75,000 a year or $25,000 a year in your household, we have real difficulties affording housing all across the state. And so this program is going to help us with that. Tonight, we're not deciding on how we'll spend these funds. We're making sure the ordinance is in place so that we can start collecting them. But we do have some recommendations that working with our partners that we'll be working with the rest of the city council on to make some final decisions on the next month or two, and as we get back into committee process and stuff. So thanks for the time and excited to vote yes.
Melissa, do you want to add anything else?
Nope, couldn't have said it better than what Gary and Richard just said.
Okay, great. Any questions from council on this particular item? It is an ordinance, and so it would be ordinance 3804.
I'll make a motion to request that the council approve ordinance 3804.
Second.
Second.
A motion by Melissa, second by Mark. Heard him first. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item D tonight is fireworks stands in Mount Vernon, and our fire chief, Brian Bryce, will present this particular item. Go ahead, Brian.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight before you, we have the application and permit for 3 retail stands for the city of Mount Vernon that will operate out of Safeway, Walmart, and Hagen's. The 3 applicants have met all the requirements for the state and the city that are in place, and they will be selling the fireworks from June 28th through July 4th. Following that, as a reminder, our fireworks are set to be able to be expelled within the city between 12 o'clock on July 4th and midnight. These are the safe and sane type fireworks. So again, I think the short way to think of this, if it goes up in the sky and goes boom, these are not the ones that are being sold here in the city. These are the ones that are lower, safer, well, as safe as you can get a firework for the community. With that, we're going to continue our outreach from the fire department for education through the paper, get some signs onto the garbage trucks, and then we have some also signs that get placed throughout the community. I was trying to remind folks about the hours and how to use these safely. With that, I'm open for any questions you might have.
Okay, questions for Chief Bryce on this action item?
Yeah, Chief, I have a question. I know that our fire marshal position is vacant at the moment, and as I recall, he generally went out and checked to make sure that these fireworks stands are in compliance. Do we have someone that will be filling that role this year?
Yes, it'll be myself and Chief Harris, Assistant Chief Harris. So again, the fire marshal vacancy is a big hit to the city for many reasons, but we're going to fill in for that. And we also have some assistance from the city of Burlington should we need it with some other expertise. We also have a contract with Les Townsend, who is an expert in fire prevention systems, who's been helping us out to kind of bridge the gap, so to speak, which is also a reliable source for us.
Thanks.
Any other questions for City Council? Okay. What would you like to do?
I'll make a motion for City Council to approve the retail fireworks stand applications.
Second.
Motion by Aaron. We'll give a second to Richard. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Just for some interesting information, Chief Kamek forwarded me an email where the Upper Skagit tribe, due to the COVID pandemic and their concern about health and safety, have decided to not sell fireworks to the public this year. However, the Swinomish tribe is going to be selling to the public. So we'll hopefully get information out that those fireworks are not legal within the city limits of Mount Vernon. All right.
I believe that the Tulalip tribe has also chose not to sell fireworks this year.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I commend them, definitely. So, okay. Item E, for the good of the order. Since we didn't have a committee, it's difficult. I'm going to ask Esco Bell. We have a public works update, and so he's your public works director. I thought that that would be appropriate, and then we can jump back into some pandemic response and discussion. So, Esco, I'm going to share a screen with your slides, and then you can take it away. Oops.
Thanks, Mayor and Council.
And all right, there you go.
Okay, Mayor, let's go to the first slide. Just giving you the quick update of our projects. And I know this has been done for a couple weeks, but gee whiz, you know, I think I've been thinking about it now for 15 years since I first got here. And I looked and I thought, gee, I wonder if we can dig out and stick 2 lanes underneath the bridge or underneath I-5. And anyway, there it is. And $8.5 million. It's adds a lot of capacity, of course, and it's, you know, the funding for this, of course, is state and, whoops, my lights are going off.
Esco, can I jump in for a second? Is anybody else seeing the slides?
No
Yes,
problem
I
seeing
am.
them here.
Yes, I see
I
him.
am.
Okay.
Oh.
If you could pantomime while you're doing it, Esco, that would help.
Pantomime. Yeah. Hey, this is a beautiful shot of from a drone of the project under College Way there. Anyway, $8.5 million project, mostly funded by federal, state, and even some money from the county. So $8.5 million if to get those 2 lanes, and I think it's working quite well. I hope other folks feel the same way. This is a lot cheaper than trying to do an interchange rebuild at $30 to $50 million at least. And then, Mayor, could you do the next slide, please? It's just another view that I think looks kind of cool, looking to the east. And thank you for that. How about the next slide? And then another project that is long overdue. Folks have wanted a signal at 30th Street on College Way, just out to the east of the Skagit Valley College. That thing's going to be completed by the end of this month. If you've noticed out there, we've got sidewalks and a little bit of paving in today, but you'll start seeing signal arms go up in the next couple of weeks. The cost of this project, $805,000 plus, and it's federally funded. Could you go to the next slide, please? This is just a shot today. You can see the pavement and the sidewalks, and then you'll start seeing the signal arms and the computer box that goes to run the signal. That'll all start happening next couple of weeks. Really happy to get that. Next slide, please. Okay, another project that is an emergency repair project of a culvert. So we're going to have to. I'll show you the location and a picture of it here pretty quick. But it's 160 feet of a damaged culvert on Colshan Creek that we need to remove. We're going to have to realign, rebuild the stream channel, and realign that a little bit, and then stabilize the bank. It's going to end up costing between $170,000 and $200,000, and we'll get that done this year. Next slide, please, Mayor. So this is just showing you the location on Colshan Creek over there, just south of College Way and just to the east of Roosevelt Avenue. Next slide, please. And here's looking from 19th to the west. And so underneath of this is this culvert, and it's just falling apart. And it's not really of a capacity to handle Colshan Creek. The water comes up over and runs over the top of the grass here. And down there where you can see on the slide, there's damage starting to maybe threaten a garage and some other private property. Next slide, please, Mayor. So we had to get in there and already just do some emergency work, and we're working on the final design right now, and like I said, we'll get it built later this year. And when it's done, it'll be, you know, just a nice open creek. So it'll be definitely better environmentally too. Next slide, please, Mayor. Okay, another project I just want to mention that, you know, the improvements we did at the railroad crossing on Riverside, we did that in partnership with BNSF. It's essentially complete, but I mention it here just because we still have the wayside horn to go in. The whole project is $1.3 million of construction. That was a grant that was from the feds and administered through WASDOT. And the wayside horn, we're working with DOT or not DOT, BNSF, no complaints. It's just they have, you know, their multi-billion-dollar operation. We get on their schedule when they say. So we'll be done when that's done. And next slide, please, Mayor. Okay, this is of course the slide of it. I hope everybody agrees the ride is much better and the crossing's much better. On the upper left on the photo there, you can also see these little, I don't know if anybody noticed them, but the little pedestrian gates that we now have that come down when a train's there, that's a lot safer. And then when we get the wayside horn, it'll be a lot better than it was. Next slide, please. Another project that is we've been working on for, you know, a year and is almost done is our corridor projects on College Way and Riverside, where we were upgrading all these signals to get the left-hand turn signals and the ADA ramps modernized. We're all done except at Market Street, but that's a project about $1.6 million federal funds. Again, a lot of federal and state funds in all these projects. Next slide, please, Mayor. And so that's just a picture today of Market Street at College Way. And it's just, we've got these signal heads up and they'll have to be, just get those completely switched over to those left turn flashing signals. And then we'll be done with that. That'll happen in just the next couple of weeks. Get our cones out of there. Next slide, please, Mayor. Then another project, our lining project. And you know, when you see what happened at the 19th Street culvert, this is the kind of thing we're trying to prevent. By years ago when the mayor and council supported just this preventative maintenance where we video our sewer lines and our stormwater lines and we line them and we restore their strength. And this polymer that's hardens up with smooth plastic also restores the capacity. So really good preventative maintenance. And we spend, this year we'll spend $805,000 on this sort of work, but it's definitely a good value when you see the kind of money you can spend when they do collapse, if they get to that sort of state. So we'll be starting that in just June 16th. And you know, most of the work, of course, doesn't tear up the surface or anything, but you'll see these machines out there and they have a lot of steam and everything else. And when people see them around town, all over town, and they'll be lining several thousand feet of pipes throughout the city. Next slide, please, Mayor. And then just to mention two upcoming projects, we're working on them now, but getting them ready for construction. One of them is Freeway Drive. I want to rehab all the pavements, new overlay on top, good thick overlay, and add bike lanes and a sidewalk on the west side toward the river. And that'll be on Freeway Drive between Cameron Way and College Way. Also add some lights that'll will improve the drainage. The drainage will be on the west side. So that project, federally funded again. We got the design we're working on now. And if we have it all ready, we will have it all ready. Perhaps we'll be able, as soon as construction money is available, we'll be able to build that. And that might be beginning as soon as next year. And then a project that we'll be able to complete this year that is also federally funded to the tune of $225,000 of construction money is lighting on Colson Trail. And that'll be from where the trail on the west end begins at near the Habitat for Humanity over to 18th Street. And we're finishing that design and we'll get that built this year. Next slide, please, Mayor. And then I wanted this slide, of course, the West Side Bridge, and it has the debris that accumulates there in high water. And of course, it's a DOT bridge, but we always pay close attention to anything associated with these bridges and floods. And so we're working with DOT. They'll be the ones who will get this debris removed. We also got some debris building up on the bridge between Mount Vernon and Burlington. That one's our responsibility. But what I'm saying here is that we get the contractors lined up and then we work with DOT, and the same contractor will probably end up doing this for them, this removal of this debris on the West Side Bridge. Main thing is we want to make sure we're well ahead of flood season. If we don't get this removed, you can end up with, everybody that's lived here knows, you can get a giant it can be jammed clear across the river if we don't stay on top of this stuff. So we're on it. I want you to know that, and we'll make sure it's done well ahead of flood season in October. And that's my report, Mayor, unless there are questions.
I got a question, Esco.
Yeah.
In years past, we used to pull all that lumber out of the river, right? The one that was, on the bridge. Okay. So now they just cut it all loose.
Yeah, that's the way we do it. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and we try to make sure it doesn't get anywhere near as big as some of those in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, same guy that does that for us. We also, if we have any work, they've done work on our log boom that protects our waterfront. So we stay in touch with them. Okay. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Esco about what's going on in Public Works? Feel free to call if you think something.
Can I ask Esco a question?
Sure.
Hey, Esco, have you received any concerns about the light on Freeway Drive and College Way heading north and south, and that traffic? It seems like it's delayed. Have you experienced that at all or received any inquiries?
Well, I mean, of course, we've been working on these projects and I've had different things, but have you had some reports recently, like in the last 2 weeks?
Yes, that it's difficult, that it backs up quite a bit and it's difficult to get out of Lowe's and things of that nature.
Yeah, I kind of noticed that myself. You know what? We'll double check that. I was wondering that myself, and I'll have our signal folks that work on a contract for us from WSDOT have them review all that timing. Now that as soon as we get the Market Street one done, and we'll have that whole stretch of signals, and maybe they'll need to just fine tune them a bit and keep an eye on them. So thank you for that, and we'll do it.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet.
Okay, any other questions for Esco? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Esco.
You bet, Mayor.
Moving on for the pandemic response and discussion, I really didn't have any new information to share other than, going to phase 2 really only affects our library. And so they've been preparing to open with the drive-up service. I was talking with staff today, and it's pretty amazing the amount of volume of things that are getting returned now. So thousands of items being returned and then thousands of items ready to go out. And they've got quite a detailed procedure from the state on sanitizing items and everything else. So with their very small staff, they are working like crazy over there to get ready to open up for that drive-through service, which I know everyone's excited about. So other than that, though, there really isn't anything new. I have the chiefs here if there's any questions for either Chief Kamek or Chief Bryce. Anything that's been on council's mind at the moment? Okay. The only other thing I was going to ask council about what you'd like to do is the order from the governor extends through June 17, which extends through next Wednesday about open public meetings and doing virtual meetings. And so our next anticipated back to somewhat normal at council chambers is going to be June 24. Staff is very diligently preparing that so that we'll have social distancing, not only placement of where the council members will sit, but also for the public. Even looking at being able to have council shown in the lobby if there's overflow of people. Generally, we don't have too many people coming, but you never know, so we want to make sure they're accommodated. But that leaves a question for next week. We would normally have a development services committee and a study session if we have items, which, as you know, we generally don't have items for action. And so I just wanted to know what council's idea was. We could have a super committee on the 24th all together, or if we want to attempt a Zoom meeting. It tends to be development services has a lot of slides and things to share, so that may seem a little harder with Zoom. So,
So, Mayor, is there a lot of information that Development Services has to share with us, or is it just kind of business as normal?
I think I would classify it as just kind of catching up and reminding what they've been working on. So I don't think it's anything that's anything different than what would normally occur. Chris's permitting activity is just permitting activity, and I know he gave you a quick update on that. So I think it could wait till the 24th and give updates, or if you have questions as individual council members, of course, please call and have a conversation.
So I guess my concern was that I wanted to make sure of anyway is that we didn't have anything that we'd be looking at the following council meeting that information we need to make decisions with.
Right. I think the only thing that we have in queue to take action on is a public hearing regarding the comp plan. Oh shoot, you don't have enough. The docket, sorry. But that involves public hearings before you make decisions or anything anyway. So I don't know if there's necessarily an update for that before. But.
And that's just the docketing process, right? It's not the actual action on the comp plan amendments.
Okay, now I'm tired and I'm going to forget. I think it's the docketing. Yeah. Oh no, I think we have 2 applications. So yes, it's the docket. Sorry.
Yeah, before we could take action, planning commission would have to meet, and I don't think they've been meeting. So
correct.
I think it's just a docketing process.
Yeah, right. Thanks for reminding me. It's a little fuzzy.
I would say that unless something urgent comes up that we need to meet, I think we could probably just plan to be back together on the 24th as a council. Personally, I look forward to that.
Okay. I see
I was having, oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Gary.
Okay, I was having trouble with, like Richard, I don't know if we're on the same broadband, but I half the slides were missing, or not catching up at the right time. So if you're going to do developmental services, it'd almost be better if you just sent the packet to us and I could look at it, and study it, because I'm missing a lot of that. So that's just my thoughts. So I'd wait.
Okay.
You're hogging all the bandwidth, Gary.
Yeah, nice try, Richard. Your kids are on the internet grabbing mine.
Okay. So then I believe the consensus would be that we won't have a meeting next week, but we would reconvene on the 24th. And if all goes well, it's in person. It's at the council chambers. We have a robust committee, and then we have our council meeting. So, okay, awesome. Thank you. And then that's all I had. Any other questions about the pandemic response or things that have come up? And seeing none, we have now concluded our scheduled agenda items, and I'll ask our city attorney, Kevin Rogerson, if there is a need for an executive session this evening.
There is, Mayor. I'd invite the members of the city council to enter into an executive session to discuss with legal counsel matters relating to enforcement actions, litigation, or potential litigation to which the city, the governing body, or a member acting in an official capacity is or is likely to become a party. And public knowledge regarding that discussion is likely to result in either adverse legal or adverse financial consequence. 30 minutes, no action after.
Okay, thank you then. With that, we'll be adjourned into executive session at 6:48.